As we already mentioned within the slides, there's a little bit to setting up our logical volumes. When I go through and look at ls block, we can see from the output that I've got my X drives SDB and SDC. We can also see I've gone ahead and already created the partition on SDC1. Let's just look at creating it on SDB. So we're pretty much going to run through the default. So N for new, P for primary, using 1 as the default, using the starting default sector, and carry on through to the end of the disk. We're going to use T to change the type, and then we're setting in 8 and E for echo as our LVM partition, and then we write this back down to disk. So we've got then our two partitions that we can use. For the moment, or for the time being, we're just going to use one of those partitions. We want to be able to see how we can see that it's relatively straightforward to be able to extend. So to begin with, we just need to create our logical volume. So we set this up first with the PV command. So we've got a set of commands that all start with PV. So I can go through and run a PV create and then /dev/sdb1. That's really just marking it some metadata at the start of this to say that it's marked as in use by our LVM system. We're going to now create VG create. We're going up to our volume group commands, and again we've got a whole load of commands that start with VG. We'll call it, say, volume group 1, and we're going to include /dev/sdb1. So now I can go through and run my VG scan, and we can see then we've got the original volume group that was created during the installation of CentOS, so CentOS, and then the one that I've created at the moment. If I use the VGS command, well, the VGS command is shorter, so it's almost bound to give us more detailed information. And we can see then that we've got volume group 1 that's got one physical volume, but as yet we haven't got any logical volumes. It's not snapshotted. We can see the size, and we can see then how much free space is available within it. We also see some of the attributes, and we'll see more of the attributes as we go through. So now it's going to be the LV command. We can go in and use LV create -n to set up the name, and we'll just call it, let's say, data LV. Seems like a good name to me. We can set up its size, so we're going to use then -L for the size. And we're just going to set it up, let's say, to 750 meg. So I've got 1000 meg, but I want to leave a little bit of free space in any case, and we'll see that later on as we're creating the snapshots. I just want to make sure I have some free space in the volume group. And then we're getting it from VG1. So now we've got our logical volume. Having now created the logical volume, we can go through and format it. So mucfs.ext4 and then /dev/vg1. There's lots of ways we can access it. I just access it through here rather than the dev mapper because it kind of makes more sense to me. This is my volume group, and then we can go through to my data logical volume. So this is then going through and formatting, creating the file system. Let's create a directory for it. So mucta/data. So we then go through and mount it through to this data directory, and then maybe copy some information across. So let's just go through copy/etc/services through to /data. So we know at least we have some data across in that directory. we now have created, if you like, our first logical volume. So we needed to go through and partition up our disks. We needed to use our physical volume commands, so pv create. Then we use the vg create, creating our volume group. There's nothing stopping me using the existing volume group, but again, we might want to keep some of this data separately. And then the final command was our lv create. That was the final command of our LVM system that created the logical volume. But even at that point, then we only really have a virtual device that we have. So we then need to go in and add our file system with the muckfs command. So really 4 steps in creating our file system based on a logical volume, whereas we have a single step when we use betterfs. Let's take a look back now at the slides and take a look at how we would extend this logical volume.